Guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Tommy Nation Politics.
Dr. Mabry, can you hear me?
Hi, Thomas. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it going?
Pretty good.
The circle has been complete. When I first left you, I was the learner. Now I'm the master.
And I'm a much better teacher than I'm a student.
You are? I mean, I go 50-50. I mean, the writing, it was hard. But I think it's funny. What do you think?
It is fun. It's really fun, yeah. The ending is different. So you can't just use that same track both times accurately.
Right.
You just have to sort of shove the last couple of sentences in, and it's just out there.
Okay. Sounds like all that Latin singing, like Quia Feci.
But the first verse works just fine.
Okay. Well, we'll figure it out. I hope so. If you can't figure it out, let me know.
You're going to be the major editor.
So I'm going to ask. Yes, I am. So I'm going to ask. So we're going to 5 seconds of silence, then do the line, and yeah. So I'm recording all this. I'm just going to get the audio, and I'm going to mess with it.
Gotcha.
So
now,
go
story
whenever you're ready. Take one.
Take a look at America. Over 150,000 Americans are dead from COVID-19. We have a health crisis worsened by Trump's failure to act. An economic crisis deepened by Trump's failure to get the virus under control. A racial justice crisis fanned by Trump's words of hate. A climate crisis exacerbated by Trump's denial of science. America needs a plan to solve all of it.
Free thinking, innovative, totally open-minded. Tommy Nation Politics.
And I wouldn't say he's at the top of his game, would you think? But he supported every single globalist attack on America. Joe Biden's policies put
How to succeed in politics without really trying. The show opens with Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, subsequently looking overly ambitious as he reads from a guidebook called How to Succeed in Politics Without Really Trying.
How to negotiate spending, how to appeal on the case, how to dictate legislation, how to develop a leadership style, how to commute in a three-button suit, with my rifle slanted and drawn. This book is all that I need. How to succeed.
When President Obama was first elected, and there were a number of big legislative lifts on the table. I feel like as an observer of that process, somebody reporting on that process, I learned a lesson.
Yes.
I watched with Obamacare, with the Affordable Care Act, the Republicans insisted that there not be any single payer option, there not be a public option,
Right.
had to be based around the private insurance companies. And they insisted on all these changes that were made for them, and then they didn't vote for it anyway.
Right.
And on the immigration bill, they insisted that their priority, deportations, all that be done up front. President Obama did all that up front, and then they still didn't
Right.
vote for it. We saw it in the Recovery Act as well. They insisted that the Recovery Act be made smaller and significantly less effective, and then they didn't vote for it anyway.
10 years it took to get, because it wasn't deep enough and strong enough. 10 years. We're not going to make that mistake with COVID.
But isn't the lesson there that it's not worth trying to get bipartisan legislation because it will weaken it and make it worse, and they're never going to vote for it anyway?
Our North Star has to be the legislation itself. It has to be big and bold and strong. If Republicans work with us to get good, strong legislation, yes. But I agree with you. I've made these arguments in numerous places. Look at 2008, where we spent a year and a half trying to get something good done, ACA, Obamacare, and we didn't do all the other things that had to be done. We will not repeat that mistake. We will not repeat that mistake. You are right. I think of just what you think all along, and it's a different time. I mean, we've had the most authoritarian president around. Look how close he came on that awful day, January 6th. And the antidote is constructive, strong action by us, by the government. That's the answer, so that when the appeals to bigotry and nastiness and divisiveness are thrown at the American people again, which Trump did, we're making good progress. Let's stick with this. But if we don't make progress,
more than ever before. And in fact, the Trump administration's Homeland Security official charged with the election deemed the election.
This is a simple story of a young man who climbs to a position of great power, and the girl, Nancy Pelosi, conventionally and loyally, who hangs on. Madam Speaker Nancy Pelosi in this wonderful musical satire, the master legislator and his success, victory due to neither hard work nor any other ancient prescriptions. He gets ahead by following these simple rules detailed in a book entitled How to Succeed in Politics Without Really Trying. Our hero, Charles Ellis Schumer, runs into many obstacles and overcomes them like a modern comic Siegfried. A native of Brooklyn and a graduate of Harvard Law School, from the first coffee break to the last elevator load on Friday night, office life is never the same. Nevertheless, Chuck Schumer settles in for the trip to the top. Senate Majority Leader.
Have I forgotten any of the special pre-Senate lawmaking routines that assist me in germinating the super-de-duper historic political compromising everyone's come to be astounded by? Oh, goodness gracious. What is that raucous presence that has triggered my suspicion of irregular activity? Only perhaps the most obstruction-able Mitch McConnell.
All right, Charles. I've had enough of your filibuster ignoring Senate Committee Majority Rule balderdash. Your slimy scheming, your wasteful spending, your ramrodding budget resolutions, ramrodding my party and the American people. Where in the Sam Hill, Johnny Appleseed, Bunker Hill is my corporate liability? We had a deal, Chucky. I publicly lambasted and embarrassed the former president of the United States. In return, you give me the last thing on my goddamn campaign donor wish list. Give me that! Give me that corporate liability.
Now, Mitch, let's be adults. Also, when you address me, remember that you address the entirety of the American people by virtue the will of the American people. Yelling, aligning my character is no less than disrespecting every single hard-working American citizen in this great country we hold dear. And in relation, our posterity and promise that shall be handed down the freedoms and liberties that American sovereign citizenship birthright dictates.
Don't you force me, Charles. With your bombastic bellowing, bellowing. I think you remember, I was the Senate Majority Leader at one time. And you know what, Mr. Schumer? I will be again.
Keep your pants on, Mitch. You can keep the filibuster. I've discovered a way to render our contrived non-constitutional committee conventional policies obsolete. With my crafty political fiscal year sidestepping. Never before attempted.
Now here's the deal. Look, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
Here's the deal.
Instead of a 60-vote majority or bipartisan buggery, if you order today from the New York Times, you can get this special deal for, well, nothing in the present moment. But you must act now. This offer is so good, it will not last forever. So, to take advantage of it...
Bum, ba-da-bum, bum, bum, bum.
Hi, this is Chuck Schumer.
Schumer.
In a minute, I'm going to tell you about an obscure Senate procedural maneuver solution that will help you avoid that sourpuss Mitch McConnell, allow passage for the president's massive infrastructure bill to pass without any Republican votes. Hi, this is Chuck Schumer, and in just a minute, I'm going to tell you about an obscure Senate procedural maneuver solution that will help you avoid that
Schumer.
and allow passage for the president's massive infrastructure bill to pass without any Republican votes.
Wow, Chuck Schumer.
Although Democrats control both chambers of Congress and the White House,
Schumer.
their hold on the Senate is tenuous with a 50-seat majority.
Schumer. Majority leader.
Most legislation required 60 votes to advance in the Senate. Democrats are unlikely to get Republican support for their more ambitious and expensive proposals.
Oh no, Schumer.
I hope this process does not draw out like it did for the horrible COVID bill. I had to skip my chess game in the park with CIA director. So inconvenient and upsetting. Unfortunately, it is much harder than you think to get President Biden and our milquetoast neoliberal organization to undertake an ambitious legislative agenda. However, I, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, am rightly amid glorious exploration. For behold, my poverty-touched Ivy League interns, I have now discovered a powerful use of an obscure procedural maneuver, one that would allow for the president's massive infrastructure bill to pass without Republican votes. Mr. Biden will be thrilled.
Yay, Schumer.
Senate Majority Leader Schumer always gets his convenient procedural committee assistance. You can count on it. Although Democrats control both chambers of Congress and the White House, their hold on the Senate is tenuous with a 50-seat majority. Absent of eliminating the filibuster, which would allow legislation to advance with a simple majority, Democrats have few options for passing their priorities without any Republican votes. I, for one, am not in the spirit of dialogue with such a Scrooge as Mitch McConnell. No doubt, this snake oil scam will be far more dubious. Congress used budget reconciliation to pass Mr. Biden's $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan earlier this month, without any Republican votes. That blasted Bernie Sanders compelled us to utilize a budget resolution for the current fiscal year to lay the groundwork for passing the American Rescue Plan, in hopes of assisting those ungrateful, non-asset holding, dirty working class imbeciles. Although, typically budget reconciliation is used only once per fiscal year, I implored the Senate parliamentarian whether he can revise the current budget resolution to allow for another reconciliation process to pass the infrastructure package. Fingers crossed, my sociable subordinates, working hard on a daily basis to maintain the convenience of the American people's only two choices. The Cliff Notes for the American people. Fact-checked, op-ed interviewed, and narrated all down the line. You do not have to think, America. We will do that for you. After all, isn't that what government is for? My Senate wench, Angela, tells me that Section 304 would allow for a second reconciliation process to be used this fiscal year. Even though I surmise her to be lower in the IQ totem pole, I surmise her analysis is relevant because it says the two houses may adopt a concurrent resolution on the budget which revises and reaffirms the concurrent resolution on the budget for such fiscal year mostly recent agreed to. Good work, Angela. I should have known since you look like an actual anteater. God would have blessed you with, well, something behind those ears, I suppose. But let's not celebrate yet, Angela. There are there are problems still. Debacles afoot with both the alternative options.
What debacle is afoot, Mr. Schumer?
Democrats forced a budget resolution for the current fiscal year to lay the groundwork for passing the American Rescue Plan. Although typically budget reconciliation is used only once per fiscal year, the majority leader asked the Senate parliamentarian whether he can revise the current budget resolution to allow for another reconciliation process to pass the infrastructure package. Parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough could rule as early as Friday on whether to allow for another budget reconciliation bill this year. Angela, go seduce that Senate parliamentarian McDonough. See if we can go about using Section 304 of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974 to allow for a second reconciliation process this fiscal year.
I'm not a lesbian, Mr. Schumer.
Then congratulations, you are once again useless to me.
Mr. Schumer, sir, if I may, permitting multiple bills to pass through budget reconciliation per fiscal year would make it even easier for Democrats to approve certain priorities. However, there might be the consequence of a long and grueling standoff when the minority leader gets wind of your conspired scheming affair.
If the parliamentarian agrees with my arguments, it will mean that the Senate majority could use reconciliation as often as they wish. We maintain control of the House and the White House.
We must engage in some sneaky and obscure maneuvering to pass Biden's infrastructure bill, along with some of our other meager priorities.
Statuary Hall once said right here in the Capitol about women, once the door is open, there is no stopping us. Each of their memories is a source of strength and inspiration to us as we approach the challenges ahead. Scripture tells us that to everything there is a time, a season, a time for every purpose under the heavens, a time to build, a time to sow, a time to heal. Now is certainly a time for a nation to heal.
Unfortunately, I know about these challenges all too well because, absent of eliminating the filibuster, which would allow legislation to advance with a simple majority, Democrats have few options for passing their priorities without utilizing Republican votes. As horrid as that man is, not to mention his ancient, raucous breath, I can relate to poor old McConnell's melancholy predicament. I, at a very recent time in the past, was minority leader of the Senate. But I suppose now the clever little turtle acknowledges the bombastic East Coast intellectual consigliere of Congress.
When you bide your time and serve the right interests, the news isn't all that grim.
I served all right. I've been a busy little boy for the past 4 years.
And now, the check is in the mail for check. I just have to go. This two-pronged infrastructure bill will have me collecting from every other plan this side of Boardwalk, even before I get past St. James Place.
Who funded the military while Bernie wanted $2,000 checks? Me. Who killed the minimum wage from the COVID bill? Me. Who gave $1,400 instead of $2,000? Me. I run the show. Meanwhile, everybody's worrying about that dementia-riddled old man falling down some stairs. Oh, what a time it is to be Senate Majority Leader. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about my obscure senatorial maneuver process I cooked up that's definitely going to wow the lapdogs of the Fourth Estate and the establishment bootlickers.
It's Infrastructure Week, and Biden is proposing a big agenda related to infrastructure. Chuck Schumer thinks that he might just have found a magical way to pass that entire agenda. How? I'm going to break it down. I'm going to be talking about Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. not only because of his magic loophole finding abilities that were in the news this week, but how he got to where he is, how he became essentially the most powerful person in the United States Senate.
This is a different Senate. We are going to debate, and everyone's going to have to vote.
Democrats are intent on using the reconciliation process because it can't be filibustered. It's not meant to be used to legislate everything. Generally, it can only be used once a year. But Chuck Schumer seems to think that he has found a magical loophole in the 1974 Budget Control Act that might allow him to unlock more than one reconciliation this budget year. And this is where things get a little in the weeds. If you know one thing about reconciliation, you know that it protects legislation from a filibuster. This year, this calendar year, Democrats can use it twice. Why? Because they didn't use the one from last year's budget. Federal budgets start on October 1st, so we're still in FY 2021. I told you we're gonna get in the weeds a little bit. That's the reconciliation vehicle that they used to pass the COVID relief bill. They've got one more reconciliation vehicle for, that's right, FY 2022. And they can start that process as early as May. A lot of Democrats have basically come to the conclusion that they're never going to get Republicans to cooperate on anything. And so they get two big bites at the legislative apple this year.
I am encouraging my colleagues to sit down with Republicans and move forward. There's a big difference in how we're conducting things and the way they're conducting things.
Schumer, studying the massive Congressional Budget Control Act of 1974, found something called Section 304. This section of the law has never been used before. They're desperate to unlock another reconciliation bill, and the way they think they can do this is by going to the Senate parliamentarian. Section 304 says they can revise the original budget resolution that was passed earlier this year, and when they revise that, unlock another reconciliation. Of course, everything depends on whether the Senate parliamentarian agrees with the Schumer interpretation of the law. So one of the ways to understand Chuck Schumer is how he thinks of himself ideologically. Chuck Schumer has been a senator from New York since 1999. Prior to that, he was a member of the House. I actually covered him back when I was first starting to cover politics. And in the late 90s, Schumer was considered this extremely abrasive New York politician who was not cut out for the United States Senate. Schumer got his start in politics as the youngest member of the New York State Assembly since Theodore Roosevelt. He made history again in 2020 as the first Jewish Senate Majority Leader and the first New Yorker to hold that post. The way his aides describe him, or at least they did previously, is that he always wanted to be in the middle of the Senate Democratic caucus. That's where he thought it was safer to be ideologically.
Introducing the infinite and magical Senate Budget Resolution. Senate rules, I make them. Senate committees, I assign them. Those are just some of the reasons you'll find that when you've been a Senate Minority Leader for almost a decade, it subsequently might be an investment that pays for itself. Plus, that investment will benefit you. Well, not you, but the people you work for.
Yeah!
That is it. Really is that simple. So by now, you're probably wondering, how much does it cost? Well, the regular price is not in your budget, but you're going to get an amazing deal you won't find anywhere else. You have absolutely nothing to lose because I offer a no questions asked, 100% money back, 30-day guarantee. So if you're ready to make a budget resolution, contribute a small dollar donation to the Democratic National Committee website, or put a check in the mail pronto. It might just be the best investment you ever make. Thanks for your time.